Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Desiree, and on my channel, we talk about things like spirituality and law of attraction, self development, self love, recovery, addiction, parenting, and so much more. And tonight, I hope you are taking all this love that I am giving out. Take it, take it, take it, take it, take it. Okay. So, before we get started, go ahead and push that thumbs up button and that subscribe button. That way you can get notified every time I upload new content. And tonight we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. I was recently approached by someone who is writing a paper on drugs and alcohol for their master's. And they asked me if she could ask me a few questions. And I was like, I know, I got you. I got you on this information. So when I was reading over these questions, I thought, wow, these are really, really good questions. And I think that by sharing them with you, they could be really beneficial to somebody that you may know that is struggling with addiction, to providers and our community members on things that they can do to improve treatment in our area. So the first question that she asked me was if I faced any barriers receiving treatment in my area and any suggestions on improvement. And for me personally, in my area, we have a lot of availability of places that are super beneficial to people that are struggling with addiction. There are a lot of options. For me, it wasn't so much the availability of care, it was more the stigma attached asking for care. Now, this last run that I had before now I have 3 years clean, woo, woo, opiate free. But back then, before I went into treatment, I was pregnant. I was pregnant and I was abusing painkillers. And I was too scared to ask for help. But see, the kicker is, or was that I was already on probation and drug court from a previous DWI that I just couldn't get my act together to comply with. So I ended up failing a tox screen while on probation, pregnant, and I was forced into at this time, a 30-day rehab. Well, it ended up being 21 days because I was doing really well. And while I was there, I was put on Subutex. And Subutex is something that they give to mainly pregnant mothers to avoid risk losing the baby and to help with the cravings and to be in a more controlled setting as far as a maintenance drug. Now, fast forward, I had the baby, and when my daughter was 4 months old, I started abusing my prescription gabapentin, and I was justifying it because it was my prescription. 3 years ago, 3 Thanksgivings ago, my, at that time, 7-year-old son found me having not 1, not 2, but 3 grand mal seizures. I ended up waking up in a hospital, not even knowing what year it was. didn't even know who the president was. They didn't know if I was going to have normal brain activity. I had went through all of that stuff with my pregnancy and my daughter being born, which I will leave the link in this video about my story of the things that I went through in the hospital after having my daughter. This is where I was at. So, since I was still on probation from this DWI, when I was in the hospital, my mother told the nurses that they better call CPS. And at that time, I had to go back into drug court and let the coordinator know what had happened. I ended up going to jail. And I sat there for 2 weeks thinking I was going to be here for a year. I was lost. And it was a really dark time. It was a really dark time. But by the grace of God, I was given the chance to take my baby and go to a residential treatment facility. And one of the questions that I was asked was, what was a typical day like in this facility? Was there counseling? Were there peer groups and life skills training? Was family allowed to visit? My residential stay was probably, I was put in jail and I was facing a year away from my children, away from my newborn. But I was blessed with the option of going to a residential facility. And it was there that I would be able to have my daughter back, because when I went to jail, the social workers came to see me and asked me, they said, Desiree, who do you want to take care of your daughter? And I was like, this is not happening. I did not want to accept it, and I wasn't going to accept it. I needed a different option, and that's what I focused on. And that's the power of focus. I was asked what a typical day was like in this residential facility. And it basically was, I was stripped away of everything. I was stripped away of my pride, of my ego. Manipulation was going away. Control was taken away. So that way, I could start rebuilding myself and rediscovering myself and practice the skills that I needed to learn how to do without the use of substances. I had been using on and off opiates for 15 years. I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. I didn't know how to deal with daily tasks. All I knew was getting up and grabbing a handful of pills just to be able to function. So we had a counselor that we worked with. We had a family specialist. Every morning we would wake up at 6:30. We would go and get breakfast, and then our children were sent off to daycare just like normal life, so that way we could spend 8 hours in groups all day long, just as if we were working. We were able to shop. We were able to have cable until it went out. But I wasn't able to make money. I wasn't able to have a car. I wasn't able to have a cell phone. I wasn't able to make phone calls when I wanted to. Family was not allowed to come see me on the premises. At that time, I thought I was living in hell. But I remember when we first get to the facility, we're in the main building, and we have to work and live in a dorm setting until we were able to transition into the apartment, which was all within a gated community. We had chores. We had to do dishes. There were times that we were allowed to prepare meals. Once we were out in the apartments, then we were given days where we were taken to go get groceries. If we had a doctor's appointment, we had to get public transportation there, and you weren't allowed to have a cell phone or bring a cell phone. You had to rely on the workers or like the people at the doctor's office to call and say she's ready to be picked up. It was humiliating. And I was in a really bad section of town. If we chose to take the bus, we had to go with a stroller, rain, snow, sunshine, and go walk to the bus station. This is what life was like. It was not easy. It definitely wasn't easy. If we didn't put a garbage bag back in the trash can, we were punished for that. We weren't allowed to have a phone call. Or I remember once I was out in the apartment building, there was something going on, and they were duplexes. So my neighbor and I had planned on making dinner that night, and we kind of opened up each other's door and were peeking our head out to tell each other, hey, when this is all over, it was a lockdown. It was a lockdown. Well, because I cracked open my door to tell my neighbor and ask her about dinner, one of the employees saw this happening, and because we weren't allowed out of our apartments during a lockdown, I was then taken. I had that weekend, I was supposed to go home to see my son, and I was stripped of that privilege because I opened up my door. It was tough. Another question that was asked is if I was comfortable with staff. And for the most part, I was. There were a few women there that were heaven sent. They were absolutely amazing. And I think that it was important that I had that mixture of people that I could open up to and relate to. And I also had employees that weren't so easy to open up to or get anything by. Another question I was asked is, what is my role with the Mental Health Association? And is it beneficial? Let me ask. I have it written down. What is my role with the Mental Health Association and why is it beneficial? So, I am a recovery coach. I have been getting my certification in different areas of, basically ethics training, and it has absolutely been beneficial to me to continue to be in this setting. And what I do there is I chair a mindfulness meeting, and I can go there and I can open up, I can share my story and not be judged. I'm accepted there, and at the same time, I know my story is helping other people. So yeah, absolutely. My role in a recovery place is so beneficial to me. Another question that was asked was, should treatment seek to recruit recovering addicts, and why it would be beneficial to those seeking treatment or those with drug addiction? Well, just like I said, it gives someone to be able to relate to, or for this person that's struggling to relate to. Being able to talk to somebody that's been through the same thing that I've been through, to share my story with, to have that person feel compassion and actual empathy because they went through it. That's very important. I know that for me and a lot of other people that have been through this, when you're trying to receive treatment from somebody that hasn't been through it, you have this underlying, I don't want to say judgment, but opinion that a textbook can't teach you everything. It's experience, and that's where you learn through experience. Yes, a textbook can teach you, it can only teach you so much. But to have somebody that's been there isn't anything that can compare to that. No. And I think that was the last question, was, does it better help those struggling to relate to somebody? And it is. I can't stress that enough. But I just wanted, these questions, they kind of went off the topic of just residential treatment, but I really felt that, like I said in the beginning, that this would be beneficial to other people that are going through the same things that I went through. And I hope that it does. So if you can please push that like button for me one more time, and make sure that you are subscribed if you haven't already. I'll leave the link in the description for the video where I talk about my story. And I hope that you come back. I hope you enjoyed. Namaste.